We are back, and we are joined now by Jennifer Welch, interior designer, co-host of the I've Had It podcast, and co-author of Life is a Lazy Susan of Shit Sandwiches. Jennifer, we've been meaning to have you on for a while. So thrilled we were able to make this happen.
Thank you so much for having me on. You know, I am doing a midlife gap year soon, and I'm moving to New York out of the Bible Belt. And I've raised my kids. The youngest one is at USC. And you and I were texting about my coming on. And I was like, this is perfect because I need friends in New York. So this is our
Yes.
first time meeting, and I'm going to be your new best friend.
I know. Well, I mean, I'm all for it, and we have to have you on in studio once you officially move in. But I couldn't wait till you got here in October to have you on, especially because I knew Sam would be out today, and I wanted a little bit of girl time. I hope that's all right with you.
Love it.
But we can bring you on with him as well because he seemed a little jealous, honestly, when I told him you would be on today.
Oh, I love that. It's always when you're 50 and somebody's jealous they don't get to be with you, you just absorb that energy.
Can you honestly just tell us a little bit about your background? I hadn't, I had meant to ask you about this because I've been seeing, people will say you've got the liberal wine mom thing locked down, and I'm 31. I love wine. I hope to be a mom at one day. So mom one day. Wouldn't take that as something that's like offensive. I think it's actually pretty awesome. So I hope to be a future wine mom. Or do you find that to be a funny way to describe your demographic?
There's two takes on that. The first one is sometimes people refer to us as mom podcasters in a reductive way, and you would never hear anybody refer to Joe Rogan as a dad podcaster.
Right.
And so in that regard, fuck them. In the regard that members of the LGBTQ plus or of the Black and brown community are refreshed to see a woman like me who meets the optics that you might think, oh, fuck, where was she on January 6th? And then you hear me advocating for you. And then my kids told me the phrase mother, like you're so mother. So in that regard, being like a maternal supporter or ally or an aunt or a big sister, I embrace that entirely.
And what do you think about I guess some of the reaction in the Democratic base to the way that leadership has responded here? I know you've been really vocally critical of Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, as we have been on this show, but it's almost like they were surprised that your show would have this take, but it's actually reflective of what we're seeing in the base. Like, a majority of Democrats do not want this leadership anymore. And I don't understand why either of our opinions on this would be controversial.
Well, I think that Democratic establishment has a brand of pick-me politics. They want everybody to like them. And when you aspire for everybody to like you, nobody likes you because you're inauthentic and you don't stand for anything. And so right now, what everybody wants to see is people that stand up and that fight against this fascist regime. And when you see the word salad and the moral duplicity coming out of Jeffries, Cory Booker, Chuck Schumer, it's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking because this is a moment where you have to set all of your PAC money aside and you have to get on your big boy pants and stand up and not be a pussy. And when I see these Democratic establishment candidates puss out, it angers me, but more than anything, it's heartbreaking because their positions as a woman who lives deeply in a red state, we have had to rely on Democratic leaders from other states to protect us from MAGA and Republicans' worst impulses, which are putting the 10 Commandments in schools, no exceptions to abortions, very horrible education systems, Trump Bibles in schools, et cetera. I could go on. And so you rely on these certain politicians to be uncompromising when it comes to human rights. So when you see them compromise, I mean, it really enrages me / makes me sad at the same time.
What do you think of the "you get what you voted for" thing? Because when I think about red states, I think about some of the poorest states in the South. I mean, you're from Mississippi, right?
No, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, I'm so sorry. But I think about
I'm not that
others.
redneck.
Not that I apologize. I don't know where I got that from. But I mean, maybe I'm just thinking of Mississippi. Like
Look,
these
my
are.
husband's my third cousin, not my first cousin, Emma, okay?
I got it. I'm sorry to let my coastal elitism slip out and blend all these states together. But it is like there are vulnerable communities in those states. They just are gerrymandered out of politics, or they are in areas that are kind of so left behind that they're not considered as a part of kind of our active voting political community. And I don't want to leave those folks behind just because a bunch of, Christian white people in those states decide to vote for Trump.
Well, my response to this is twofold. On the surface, I totally get you get what you voted for, fuck around and find out. As an impulsive reaction, when you see what this regime is doing. As a progressive person, once I get past that impulse of being catty and petty, which is fun to be for a few seconds, cooler heads prevail. And then I realize, like, let's take, for example, first and foremost, the Latinos for Trump. That girl had that big salsa rally. I will vote for Donald Trump. And they're, woohoo, arriba, arriba. And then her husband and her nephew, ICE, scrape him out the door. She's bawling, crying. She feels betrayed by Donald Trump. And because I'm progressive, I have empathy for her, even though she was a dipshit, even though she didn't watch the signs at the Republican National Convention that said mass deportations now, even though it enrages me that they were so stupid to think that they could align with people that were going to oppress your people, and at some point those knives wouldn't be turned on you. As a progressive person, I still have empathy for them. As it pertains to people in rural America, I have empathy for them because, like, people in Oklahoma, the only thing they have in their rural communities is church. And these MAGA politicians, let's just take our Governor Kevin Stitt, who I refer to as Governor Dipshit. Governor Dipshit weaponizes Christianity out in rural Oklahoma, and he Christian signals and he Jesus signals, and he just throws out a few things to say, hey, I'm one of yours. And then he completely rapes and pillages every sense of autonomy or any sort of social safety net they could possibly have. We've gone from 16 years ago, we had a Democratic governor. We were 14th in education. MAGA supermajority policies, we are dead last in education. So I have empathy for those people because they've been lied to and manipulated. The people I have no fucking empathy for are country club white Republicans that played a short-term game. They know Trump's a nut. They know that he's surrounded by a bunch of nuts. And they played this short term, I want my 401k to be great. And I know he's a racist. I know he's a sexist. I know that, these women that are getting raped in certain states can't have access to health care, but I don't give a shit because I'm just a capitalist. When they lose all of their money, I'm not going to feel empathy for them. But the other two, I do feel empathy for.
I totally agree with you. And you mentioned some of the Christofascism of this administration. I want to play this clip from Charlie Kirk's memorial, which it was filled with pyrotechnics and speeches by Donald Trump and other political figures, where it seems like everybody's last conversation with Charlie Kirk validated all of their politics prior to this. But Benny Johnson, MAGA influencer, who I don't know if he was responsible for the grinder outage at the event. I mean, it could have been him. It could have been anybody, honestly, just due to overuse. Here he is speaking, and you can pick up on a lot of what Jennifer is saying here about like the Christo-fascist elements of this movement.
The Apostle Paul describes how God establishes the rulers of the nations. In the audience right now, there are rulers of our land. Represented right here is the State Department, the Department of War, the Department of Justice, the Chief Executive. God has instituted them. God has given them power over our nation and our land. God saved our president, President Trump, from an assassin's bullet for this moment. And what does the Apostle Paul in Romans say about a godly leadership? He says that rulers wield the sword for the protection of good men and for the terror of evil men. May we pray that our rulers here.
Okay, I think we get the gist. I like how men are both the protagonists and antagonists. Women are just along for the ride. God saved the president, but wanted the
Men on men action.
Right, wanted the firefighter to die at the rally, and then I guess also had to sacrifice Charlie Kirk for this moment is the implication from Benny Johnson.
He works in mysterious ways.
I mean, so this is what they do. This is what is Christian signaling, Jesus signaling, and this is what, as being an atheist Democrat in a red state my whole life, I see that these politicians do. And when you think about people in rural America, they don't fucking know what's going on in Gaza. And I don't want to step on anybody's toes. They don't care. That is the part of rural America is simply, you get up. My husband's from rural Oklahoma. He's a criminal defense attorney. And he said, you get up, you try to, grind your way through your day. Nobody's making any money. Everybody's broke. Half the people are on meth. And then you watch Wheel of Fortune. And then you say, who can I blame for my shitty life? Fox News serves up who you can blame, who you're going to scapegoat, those immigrants, those trans people, those drag queens, those lesbians. We had a guy who ran for Senate in Oklahoma, and he campaigned in rural Oklahoma that lesbians were a huge problem in eastern Oklahoma, which I would say there is kind of a fine line between cowgirls and lesbians. Sometimes you're kind of like, could go either way. But
right.
They Christian signal, and it works with them because their only form of culture or home or social life is in these churches. And the churches are hell, fire, damnation. You're no good. You need to be saved. And so for me, I was not surprised that Christians clung on to Trump because I've always been at the top of prayer list. Everybody's always been trying to save me my whole life. And they are very primed for this type of cruelty talk. When friends would take me to go get me saved, the preachers sound exactly like Donald Trump. They sound exactly like Benny Johnson. So it's familiar.
I know you've spoken about this a bit with your co-host Pumps about her upbringing versus yours. Her growing up in a more traditional Christian household in the United States. Like, how has your friendship kind of informed that? One, and two, if you could expand on the element about churches only being like the only form of community, because I think that's really important. It's why cities are so scary to, I think, conservatives, is because you interact with all different kinds of people and you're in such close proximity that you have more options to form community. Although I think capitalism largely limits it because we're so on a razor's edge about our next paycheck or whatever. But like that element, I think, is really important. And this is a very drawn out question, but when I used to go cover Trump rallies, I was going to one Trump rally a week in the lead up to 2020. And it felt like when I went to mega church with my aunt, it was the same vibe. And it is a form of community, a perverse one, but it's because there are no other ones.
Totally. So, I had a really unique upbringing. My parents, atheists. I don't know why we were in the buckle of the Bible Belt, but we were. I was born in Dallas, then moved to Oklahoma City when I was in grade school. And my parents traveled all the time, but I grew up around all of these really religious people. And so when I never fit in with them because I was never indoctrinated. You know how today the rapture is supposed to come on Christian Talk? They're talking about it.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if we got raptured just right here on air?
Love it. I mean,
two
Oklahoma
atheists.
City would be so tolerable. I want it to happen. But I remember when I was in 8th grade, I was a Brink Bobcat cheerleader. Go Bobcats. And everybody that I went to middle school with was like, the rapture's coming, the rapture's coming, the rapture's coming. I tell my mom, she'd go, oh, for God's sakes, Jennifer, that's ridiculous. These Christians are so intellectually stupid. And the football game came and went, the rapture never came. But it's this cult-like thing, and there's all this pressure to be involved in it. I'm so grateful that I was never indoctrinated in it, because what we have right now is a bunch of people that are suffering the consequences of religious abuse. And my co-host, Pumps, she suffered the consequences of religious abuse. Now, her parents didn't set out to do this. The structures that they were raised in earnestly set her to be raised in the same structures. But if you're told when you're born that you're inherently bad, and I had a boyfriend in high school, Emma, whose dad was a Baptist preacher, and he got grounded for 3 months for beating off when he was 16 years old. Like, the shame of that is
What that
incredibly
does to you.
abusive. And so then you see Grindr crashing, and you see all of these MAGA people that have all of this child SA stuff on their phones. And I think you have like a mass psychosis of people that are suffering from religious abuse. So when they have things like this, where they can all get together to feel normal, and then the propaganda administration they know exactly what they're doing by using religion in this way. And there's so many people, this is all they know. And I think this is what's so insidious about what Charlie Kirk did. He knew, and the people that funded him knew, that for all of these megachurch people in suburban rural America, they did exactly what their parents told them to do. They prayed at the flagpole. They did Bible study, circle jerks, etc. Circle jerk, pun intended. Pun intended there. Right. Yeah. And so then they go to college, and that's the first time they're free. They're liberated. They can maybe make their own script. And that's what's so dangerous and insidious about what Charlie Kirk did. They intentionally wanted him placed at a time where free thought could be uninterrupted. And he went there to interrupt it in Christian signal. And so, the right always accuses us of virtue signaling. And probably we're guilty of that. And I don't think that's something we should necessarily apologize for. But weaponizing your faith against people who inherently have some questions, like, did Noah really load up all those animals and get on the boat? Like, I had friends that literally believe that. Pumps, right, my co-host, she told me one time she thought people lived to be 950 years old. And she'd been to law school. Imagine that, been to law school, but was indoctrinated not to critically think, not to ask questions. And that's what's so egregious and horrible about Turning Point's activities, is they're stunting the growth. And then you're going to have more broken, damaged people, because that's the perfect petri dish for MAGA to get all of their supporters.
It is interesting to me, too, how the relationship with Trump also almost mirrors, not to psychoanalyze them too much, but it's kind of fun, mirrors a relationship with almost like an abusive father, where it feels like love, where he's abusing them, and you just take it because there's no, it seems like, healthy emotional reaction or critical thought that could
Emma,
allow you.
I think it's bigger than that. I think it mirrors the relationship with the Old Testament God.
There you go. There you go. Well, I mean, he stands in as Jesus. And you heard Mike Pence. I don't know if you read that interview with him a few years ago, back when he was still vice president. He described how, Trump is this imperfect vessel, but he feels like God is speaking through him, and serving him is like serving God. And I don't know how you get from point A to point B, except for the fact that Trump is like charismatic and omnipresent, charismatic in his own perverse way, and leading a coalition of religious fundamentalists.
Yeah, I mean, I was not surprised, because when all of my friends were trying to save me when I was in junior high and high school, and I would lie to my mother and say, I'm going to go spend the night with this person, she'd be like, don't go to that church. Of course, I immediately went to the church because I wanted to fit in with my friends, right? And so I remember this one church I went to in particular. It was called Crossroads Cathedral. And my friend Shonda and her mother drove me there, and they were working class people. My family was more upper middle class. And Shonda's mom worked at UPS, really sweet lady named Debbie. And we pull up to 7-Eleven, and she has a cup in her car full of coins with a $20 bill at the top. And she said, you girls pump the gas and one of you go pay. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go pay. Shonda, you pump the gas. So I grabbed the $20 bill and I'm going to take it into 7-Eleven. She wanted us to put $5 in. She goes, no, 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 Jennifer, that 20 is for the pastor. It's for the church. Count out the coins. And so I was like, well, that's fucked up. But I did as I was told. I counted out the coins. We pull up to Crossroads Cathedral in South Oklahoma City. And right at the same time, this white Rolls Royce pulls up. And this guy gets out, Pastor Schaefer is his name, and he has on a white suit and a white mink coat. His wife gets out, and she has total Tammy Faye vibes, Righteous Gemstone. The big eyelashes, a white mink coat. We go inside, and they start doing all this Bible thumping and talking in tongues and talking about demons and all this fucking crazy shit. It was the most terrifying thing I've ever been around. And here's Debbie, who had a black eye because her husband had roughed her up a few nights before, giving $20 to this grifter, this total lying sack of shit, Pastor Schaefer. And so when Trump started doing that, I thought, this is familiar to them. This type of abusive, lying, grifting relationship is familiar. And the cognitive dissonance that it takes to both love your pastor and overlook all of his moral, obvious shortcomings is very familiar to this base. So I think that my perspective, having been raised in the Death Star, I'm not shocked that Christians like him. I know people on the coast were shocked. I was not shocked one bit. He's mean. He traffics in cruelty. Every single church that I went to where my friends tried to get me saved, the same thing. It was the same kind of talking, rambling, whacked out shit that Trump does.
He is a glorified megachurch pastor, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, that is fascinating. That really solves a lot of, I think, questions, that maybe people have about that relationship because of, all of the things that should be antithetical because of his complete, depravity individually. That all got washed away for that reason. Can we talk a little bit more about Kirk as well? Because I had forgotten, I guess, and this is, my privilege too, but I remembered all of his bigoted statements, towards Black people, towards Palestinians, towards basically anybody, trans people, gay people, what have you. But his anti-Blackness was so acute. And I think, back to what you were talking about earlier, about people being surprised that someone looks like you or even someone that looks like me is speaking honestly about what Kirk's legacy is and what the impact is of the right now. Like, where do you view your responsibility in that? Because our leadership isn't doing it. And the idea that we should just throw more marginalized groups under the bus to appease this fascist churn, it is gonna gobble us all up. There has to be a firm line here. And I think that there were a lot of people that were genuinely hurt to see the whitewashing of the things that he said. I mean, Black Americans in this country in particular, I think, because it was so horrific. And then you have the Senate unanimously voting to make a Remembrance Day for him, and just a few dozen Democrats in the House standing up here. But among the base, this is a consensus opinion, basically.
Yeah. So as a white American, I think all of us should aspire to be cookout approved whites. And I think we need to align ourselves with the Black community the way you will your own. And until we have that type of rock solid allyship, you see people make excuses for the racism that exists all the time. And as a white person who grew up in a white suburban world, I hear racism all the time. And you have to stand up and you have to defend your Black and brown brothers and sisters. The whitewashing of his legacy is so abhorrent and hurtful. It hurts me to see it, but it's also a reminder of all of the white racists that I've been around in my life. And I think that what the Democrats have done by voting to honor is just an absolute, total fucking disgrace. I think they should be ashamed of themselves. I think that I do not understand how somebody like Hakeem Jeffries, that is a Black man, can vote to honor a man who trafficked in racist cruelty and made Black people less safe and demeaned.
And who is this winning over? I mean, that's the other thing.
It's so weird.
Yeah. Donors, maybe.
It's so weird. I just think that our responsibility is to call out what everybody sees with their own eyes and hears with their own ears, saying, you saw and you heard Charlie Kirk be a racist and you were correct. That's it.
Yeah.
You don't have to spin it. You don't have to revisionist history it. Let people know what you saw is correct. He was a man that profited off of racist. And then what you also saw is correct. Bizarrely, a Black man just voted to honor him. It's fucking crazy.
It's crazy. But it shows, I think, the rot right now at the core of the Democratic Party, unfortunately. I mean, the reality is that voters, they're there. The voters are ready. The voters are ready for a transformational candidate. They're ready for a change in leadership. And yet the party's responsiveness has been non-existent, it feels like, especially at the very top. You have a select few. You have AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Zohran Mamdani, who you had on your show, which I'd love for you to give your thoughts on too. And you have governors, like I think Pritzker's done a good job, and Van Hollen in the Senate, and of course Bernie Sanders. But part of what is happening here is that Trump is able to fill vacuums because vacuums are being left purposefully. And all they're trying to do is hang on by their fingernails until the midterms. But the impacts are still going to happen. I mean, the Chuck Schumer is just waiting for an excuse to cave on the government shutdown right now. And I don't understand how you can demonstrate, like, the party is so unpopular, and part of the problem is that people don't think they stand for anything, and so their answer is, let's not stand for anything harder.
I cannot understand it. I have been sitting here trying to understand it, and I think that they're basically beholden to the same corporations that got MAGA elected. And so you have a opposition party that is MAGA light. And I think obviously the AIPAC money plays a huge, huge role in this. And I can always use Cory Booker as a prime example for this. You know, we've had him on our podcast. I liked him. He was feisty. He spoke about, equality, and he spoke up for democracy, blah, blah, blah. Then he did the 25-hour barn burner. I'm not going to sleep. I'm not going to pee. I'm fighting for democracy.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go, Cory. And then he's playing peekaboo photograph with Benjamin Netanyahu. And I'm like, say what? Are you kidding me? So now everything that Cory says, he's not a credible messenger to me. And people say that, oh, the left, you want everybody, you have this purity issue. That's not it. We have a credibility issue. We want you to be a credible messenger. You don't have to be pure. If Cory Booker or Hakeem Jeffries right now, because we're so desperate and beggars can't be choosers, if they said, we're fucked up about the AIPAC money.
I was wrong.
We're in the fight of our lives. Please get behind me. We can duke it out later. I would be first in line, because MAGA moved Trump far to the right. We can move our leaders further to the left. And we can't just be dismissive of them. But if they continue to dismiss us, then I'm going to go after them. I'm going to walk and chew gum. I'm going to go after Trump, who I call Kanks. I'm going to go after Little Smokey, who, of course, is failed drag queen, vice president, J.D. Vance, Smokey Eye sociopath, which we refer to as Little Smokey. Mm-hmm. And you can imagine what I mean by that, but the smoky eye and a small
I like
penis.
The visual you're giving right now.
And a small penis. And
thanks for the podcast audience, so they know.
We can go after all of these things, but we cannot give these complicit Democrats a pass. We have to go after them as well.
Right. And it's about making the opposition party stronger. That's what it's about. And I think most people are kind of on board with that. It's just that the party apparatus is completely sclerotic right now. Lastly, you mentioned some of your favorite nicknames. I've been using Kanks in conversations. I've got my mom to listen to your show too, so we'll call him Kanks on the phone with each other. So thanks for giving us something to laugh about.
Yeah.
Kanks, you got a little Smokey. Who are your other favorite? What's some of your other
Eric
favorite
and Don are
nicknames?
Dumb and Dumber. Eric and Don Jr.
Yeah.
Of course, Eric being dumber and Don Jr. being dumb. So Dumb and
Damn,
Dumber.
really? I would go the other way.
You really would? You think Eric's dumb and Don Jr.'s dumber?
I don't know. That's really tough. Matt's thinking really hard over there.
Usually you would say the blonde is dumber, but I think Eric is smarter than Don Jr.
I think Eric might be, but
Here's
I
the
mean,
thing about Eric.
yeah.
You know that Lara Trump, you know that when she's sitting there at Fox News, Eric's balls are just right in her cleavage. I mean, you can almost just feel it. You know that she's just got them all twisted up.
Yeah. I mean, how else would they let a woman with the Trump last name run for higher office? She must just have to like be that kind of woman.
Well, it's just amazing to me how easy these MAGA men either emasculate themselves or how easy they are to emasculate. Like, I just don't think we talk enough about, J.D. Vance is a failed drag queen that changed his name 3 times as an adult. And in a normal world that wouldn't, whatever. But he is a failed drag queen, leader of a party that's anti-drag, banning books.
Yeah.
I just think, from time to time, I always just remind our audience, we need to remember that he tried to be a drag queen and he failed. And then we show the photographs of how terrible he was at doing drag.
Right. Yeah. The match is set off. Camera. Hitler trying to be an artist. Yeah.
Mike Johnson.
Oh,
I call him Moses Mike because he said on camera that, when he was becoming Speaker of the House, that he says this, he goes, God woke me up in the middle of the night and he's like, hey, buddy, I think you're going to be Moses. And I'm just like, the fact that we have the Speaker of the House who claims that God woke him up in the middle of the night, tapped him on the shoulder and told him he was going to be Moses and part the sea and be the Speaker of the House is fucking crazy. And we also have to talk about the fact that Mike Johnson lives with this evangelical preacher. They're roommates. The evangelical preacher was spotted by neighbors answering the door in his panties one time as Mike got home from work. All right. This evangelical preacher is connected to this guy in Nashville who is a multimillionaire car guy, big Christian guy, who's when his wife divorced him, accused him in the divorce filings of forcing her to watch gay porn. Mike Johnson also has all these pray the gay away conversion camps.
He has an app on his phone where he monitors him and his son monitor each other to hold them accountable so they're not jacking off, which is normal.
Yeah, so they're not watching gay porn.
Right.
So Moses Mike is a good one. We call Ron DeSantis Kitten Heels, Governor Kitten Heels, because he always wears a little booster because he's so short.
Yes, he does. I forgot about that.
We call Mark Wayne Mullins, the senator from our state, when he questions people. We're ranked 50th in education. And he says, when was you fired? We call him Booster Box Mullins because he also stands on a booster box when he's at the podium. And they just the nicknames just kind of come to us.
Well, it's great because, go ahead, Matt.
Is there one for Ryan Walters, the superintendent that you guys got over there in Oklahoma? Because I really don't like that guy.
No, we hate him. Here's the thing. Matt, it's so awful to cover local politics. I don't watch it at all. So I only see Ryan Walters, and he's on the local news all the time when he comes on the national news. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But here's the thing about Ryan Walters. There is a local blogger named The Lost Ogle, and he has these people that are called the Ogle Moles. Somebody sent him, and you can Google it and find the picture. Ryan Walters is sitting on a bench with this guy and they're touching each other's inner thighs. It's totally gay. It's just as gay as it gets, right? Which comes as a surprise to no one that he's slapping, tickling when he's not buying Trump Bibles, right? And so
or accidentally screening porn
for
the people that he works with, which is another story that accidentally screens retro nudie flick for school board members.
Accidentally.
Whoops! This was a glitch that just happened.
That's amazing. I mean, the fact that you're combating Trump has really fallen off in the nickname game, so you're filling a vacuum here for righteousness. We'll read some IMs because people want have many thoughts and much love for you, Jennifer. Before we let you go, Biden My Time says Jennifer is hilarious. Feels like the fun half came early today. North Dakota Llama says we don't catch Eric Trump licking the coke off his teeth on camera like old Donnie Jr. So that's allegedly it's what it looked like gumming. Not that I would know. Britt, Jennifer's statement on megachurch familiarity reminds me of Twain's easier to abuse people than to convince them they've been abused. Or paraphrase a little bit there. Nick09, Kirk was the perfect nice young man for conservative moms to fawn over. I feel like that's true.
Nice young Klansman.
Yeah. Human phone book. If I were religious, I'd think Trump may be the Antichrist, but I also think the only people dumb enough to follow the Antichrist are the only people who believe in the concept of the Antichrist.
Can we talk about what's his face that's having a conference on the Antichrist? Peter Thiel.
Peter Thiel. Well, that's J.D. Vance owes his speaking about Smokey Eye.
Peter Thiel queer-eyed him.
Yeah. Remember
how he was chubby and dorky and not attractive, and then he goes off to Peter Thiel gay camp, and he comes back queer-eyed, thin, yassified eyeliner. Peter Thiel totally queer-eyed, little Smokey.
Yeah, he's the scariest part of this is the idea that Peter Thiel, who brings up the Antichrist all the time, and it sounds as like he's describing himself, that he has, if Trump, ends up perishing of natural causes given his health situation, they have all of the mechanisms in place to have Peter Thiel just like completely seize power through his, little bitch boy, Smokey.
Little Smokey. Yeah. But I mean, I did a whole episode on the progression of J.D. Vance. Because remember when he was in the Hillbilly Elegy days, he wasn't that cute and chubby, and he didn't dress very well. Right. He goes off to Peter Thiel's boot camp, and he comes back queer-eyed and yassified, and we are one news cycle away from a Smokey eye.
I hear you on that. I mean, people really, really appreciate your appearance here. I'll read some of these more of these in the fun half, but I got to let you go. Jennifer Welch, everybody check out the I've Had It podcast. It's a great show, and we try to laugh about the news here too, but sometimes I need a podcast that makes me laugh independently of the show, and I always go to you guys over there. Say hi to Pumps for me, and thanks so much for coming on, Jennifer.
Thanks for having me on, you guys. Bye.
Of course.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.